Welcome to the Blue Cafe. Today we bring back one of the first stories we ever did on the show. Sadly Op never updated us on the situation, so we'll assume the commenters were all correct. And things went badly for our poor buddy. Now, onto the story. Caught wife cheating with her boss. Advice. Hey guys, this will be quite a big post. I feel like I need an outlet on everything that has happened and hope to find some positives from it. Background. My wife and I have been married for 4 years and together for a total of 10 years. We both met through our professions and fell in love. From both accounts, we've had an incredible time together with very few arguments. I would say less than 5 to 6 in that whole time. Both my wife are both super active and took a huge interest in this together, which built our relationship to being really strong. 3 years ago, our daughter was born and we bought our first place. Things couldn't have looked any better. My wife took a year off work and spoke to me about loving being a mother and considering having a second, which was a total no-go before. She only wanted one. My wife and I decided she would go back to work part-time to spend more time at home with my daughter. She was happy with this. My wife continued to go to work part-time, but she was unsettled at her workplace and believed she had so much more to offer than the position she was in. Around a year ago, my wife applied for a very senior role at a new company. I encouraged her to look outside and go for it. My wife is very intelligent but didn't have the full credentials for this job she was applying for on paper. I told her if she can get an interview, that's all she will need to shine. She ended up getting an interview and subsequently won the job. Her package basically doubled what she was on. However, she would now be working 5 days a week instead of 4 days one week and 3 days the following week, part-time hours. As a condition of that 5-day-a-week job, one of those days must incorporate Saturdays. My wife and I went from being off 3 to 4 days a week together to 1 day a week. I work 10-hour days 4 days a week. We both discussed this at the time and thought we could get through it as it involved a substantial increase in salary and I would stay where I was to look after our daughter more. During the first 3 months of her new job, a member of the team decided to leave, leaving her in charge of basically 2 roles. Her job became super busy and she was constantly working back an hour or so a night and was shifting through work emails when she got home. I supported her where I could, but I could tell she was busy. During this time I was having a really emotionally draining time at my work and I came home a few times to try to vent to her about it. I could tell she had other things on her mind and she would basically just shrug me off. I felt deeply hurt with this and I would effectively just stonewall any further conversations regarding my feelings and thought I would just keep them to myself. Worst possible thing you can do. My wife approached me in February and said that she is frustrated that I wasn't helping around the house as much as she is working a lot. She had a fair point and I understood her. I asked her if she still loved me during that conversation and she said yes, of course. I thought this was just a conversation you have when you are a bit angry at work and push it off onto your husband. I began helping with cooking for a few weeks but fell back into not helping as much. I still looked after my daughter, cleaned the house, etc. She's always said I am an excellent father, but I just got slack again and stopped cooking. I ended up buying myself a new computer and getting into video games at night because I felt like that was an escape from reality for me. My wife used to ask me to come to bed and I would say I don't feel like it and I want to stay up. This lasted for a few months before it stopped. Knowing now, that was a huge sign of disconnect. In early September, I noticed my wife was super distant. I would talk about future plans or trips and she would say don't book it as she doesn't feel like going. I thought that was a bit strange but didn't think too much into it. Sex leading up to the week before D-Day was drying up and she would always make an excuse not to have it. I remember a few days before D-Day we had sex and it felt so uncomfortable, like she didn't want to be there. I knew something was up. A few days later we were in the kitchen and I could definitely see something was wrong. I asked her if she was okay and she just said yes, fine. I kept probing and she looked at me and said I'm not happy anymore, I don't love you. It was at that stage that my whole world I had built with her just shattered. I cried uncontrollably and we went for a drive. I was in a state of total shock. How can it feel so good and then a week before D-Day it doesn't feel right and she says this? I just didn't understand. My wife and I spoke in the car, away from our daughter, for a few hours and she was quite cold about it. She said that she feels like we have grown apart, we are distant and it feels like we are roommates. She stated that she doesn't think I'm emotionally intelligent enough. She blamed my playing of the computer to be the main reason. I tried to understand her point of view on everything she said and I definitely could see that it could feel the way it does. I pleaded for her to see a therapist and she agreed, reluctantly. She stated she wanted to make it work for our daughter. I was happy with this as at least it's something. I sat back and had a huge self-reflection on myself and thought this isn't the person who I am and it's definitely not the person I want to be. Having heard my wife say she doesn't love me anymore was the most painful experience of my life. I cherished my wife and my daughter more than anything on this planet. For the next 6 weeks, I began my growth as a man and really stepped up. I was cooking nearly every day, keeping the house spotless, completely stopped all social media as I knew this was just pointless scrolling through other people's lives and began reading a book a day, everything you can imagine on mindfulness, gratitude, love, marriage and everything in between. I began to really see how a marriage needs work all the time and being present in the moment is something I wasn't doing for 4 to 5 months. I understood how you can become comfortable and complacent in your marriage and forget about date nights and time together is so important. I began to actively listen to my wife and I was beginning to read her better than I have ever before. I was falling further in love with her during this process, even though she wasn't giving me much back. I noticed it was strange that she wouldn't give me any appreciation for anything I do the majority of the time. I wasn't expecting it, but I thought it was weird she wasn't giving anything. It felt like I was going around in circles and I tried even harder to get any recognition I could. She would constantly tell me it feels like I'm smothering her with everything I'm doing. I turned it back a few notches but noticed she would get distant even more, so I started doing more things again to help. I wrote her a love letter and left it on the kitchen counter so she saw it when I was at work. It was really nice with some touching information about how we met etc., and it was something I don't usually do but really wanted to. I received a text from her a few hours later that read, "I received your letter. Thank you. X. I couldn't believe how cold and callous that was. It was like a reply you give to a work colleague, not your husband and best friend of 9.5 years." My wife and I began seeing a counselor, both together and individually. My counselor of 30 years was shocked with the progress I was making in such a short period of time and really saw how much I was growing as a man. My wife also saw it but didn't really note it. During the 6-week period I noticed my wife was becoming obsessive with her phone. It would be face down wherever she goes and she would take it with her anywhere in the house. I began to get really suspicious as I knew this wasn't her at all. One day I observed a message from her boss come through on WhatsApp while she was showing me a video on the phone. My wife must have messaged him and said, "I'll give you a call later," and he replied with a thumbs up emoji. She flicked the message away really quickly, which I thought was odd. About 15 minutes later I was standing near her and observed her WhatsApp recent contact conversations and didn't see her boss's name on there. She must have deleted it. I began adding things up more and more. I would notice my wife and I really connecting for a few days while we were at home, and then she would go for a run with her boss after work and she would come back being really distant and cold. She put it down to good days and bad days, but I knew something was off. One day she was going to have a shower and I saw her plug her phone in charge and turn her phone off while she was in the shower. Once she got out of the shower, she picked up her phone and said, "Oh, my phone must have automatically turned off." I knew she was lying. I confronted her in the kitchen of our house about this and she went completely white, like she saw a ghost. She sat stunned for a few seconds and said, "I turned it off as I didn't want you to see the messages to my best friend about us." This best friend I knew that she was close to. I don't know why, but my gut was telling me her facial expressions didn't add up to the crime. But I asked her flat out if she's having an affair and she completely denied it. 2 days before D-Day, my wife invited me to a black tie work dinner which included some really high-profile people. She told me she wanted me to see her work and to see what it's all about. I have been asking for an invite to one of these events for a long time and finally got one. I was excited. My wife told me that we shouldn't be physical at the event as it's a black tie and was inappropriate. I chalked this up as not wanting to look unprofessional, and as we were having problems, I understood her predicament. A day before D-Day, my wife and I attended a black tie dinner. I was seated on a table with most of her colleagues who she introduced to me. I noticed her boss was seated on another table and I found it strange that she didn't introduce me, as they go for runs together once a week and she talks about him infrequently at home. Whilst the presentations were on, I noticed my wife was constantly looking over her shoulder trying to make eye contact with her boss. It was persistent and reminded me of what I did when I first met my wife. It's that first part of the love process in which you are infatuated with each other. I looked at her boss out the corner of my eye and noticed him doing the same thing. When he made eye contact with her, he made eye contact with me and looked away really fast. My wife would then look at me and ask if my dinner was okay. I knew this was a sign of guilt and something was going on. I continued with the night, not wanting to spoil it in front of her colleagues. At the conclusion of the dinner on the way home, I put it on my wife that something wasn't right with her boss. She didn't deny anything emphatically straight away, which made me even more sure. She just said, "I'm seeing things." I went home and explained I think she's having an emotional affair or more with her boss. She said that she enjoyed his company and that she likes and cares for him, but tried to play dumb and say, "What's an emotional affair?" I knew my wife was intelligent and she knew what that was. We finished the night talking. D-Day, next day she went to work. When she was about to finish work, she messaged me saying she's going to go have a few drinks after work with her work colleagues. She had begun doing this a lot in the last 6 months, which is totally out of character. My daughter was constantly saying "Mummy not coming home" or "Mummy at work." She was noticing it and she wasn't even 3 yet. Anyway, my wife said she was going to have a drink or two and then come home quickly. I said sure, go ahead. My wife ended up coming home 4 hours later and told me she had a good time before hitting the showers. I asked her who she was out with and she told me about 3 to 4 colleagues and her boss. I thought that was so strange she would go out with him in a group setting after I just told her what I suspected. Whilst she was in the shower, I checked her phone. I noticed that there was no conversation with her boss. However, she had a message she had written to her boss that she hadn't sent yet, which read, "I love you too. I just know you're not in a great spot." My whole world just collapsed. My wife was telling her boss she loved him. I just couldn't believe it. The last 6 weeks since she told me she doesn't love me, I was doing so much stuff right and she was just luring me on, knowing she is falling in love with someone else. I always thought everything I was doing was falling on deaf ears, which was so surprising, as she said if I made these changes in February when we had the discussion that she would be more in love with me now. I confronted her about it and she was just expressionless. The first thing she could say was, "Why are you going through my phone?" I was so stunned I just didn't know how to comprehend my feelings. I was pacing up and down the house and firing questions at her left, right and center. My wife told me it was an emotional connection only and was happening for around 3 months. My wife knew if the relationship came out she would lose her job at work as it's a massive conflict of interest, but she continued anyway. I told her to get out that night and she left for her friends. I was still trying to process everything. How could she do this to me? How can you do this to anyone? We've had 9 beautiful years without any troubles and you do this. I'm at home minding your daughter while you progress your career and you just shit on me? I was struggling big time. My emotions were running high, but I knew I still loved her so much. I knew the person she became in the last 3 to 4 months was not the person who she was. My wife has never been a liar, deceitful or liked going out drinking after work. Her boss had taken advantage of her vulnerabilities and told her what she wanted to hear while she wasn't getting that emotion met at home. For the next few days, I was devastated and hurt, but I knew I wanted it to work, not only for my daughter, but for everything we had built together over 10 years. I also knew the person she turned her into wasn't the person she was. I took my wedding band off and she noticed. I told her I took it off as you hurt me and it didn't feel like the ring meant anything right now. My wife was still wearing her rings and through guilt, took hers off the next day and put them in her bedside drawer. We talked a lot and she told me that she hated herself for doing what she did and felt disgusted she could tell someone she only had an emotional connection with that she loved them. I told her everything he was telling you is infatuation and not love. He was telling you what you wanted to hear when you were missing it at home. She kept asking me if I understood how it got to this point and I would get really angry at it. I told her I understood how it can be a perfect storm of a number of things, but I'll never justify what you did. My wife and I didn't get much sleep in the next few days. I was at home looking after our daughter and she was sleeping on a friend's couch. 4 days after D-Day and my wife came home and we had a long conversation. She was totally exhausted and looked like death. I told her to sleep in our bed tonight and I would sleep on the couch so she can get some sleep. She agreed. Before she went to bed, my wife continued to apologize and said she needs to know herself why she did what she did. I told her that people make mistakes, although I can't ever justify what you have done and my trust with you has been torn to shreds. People do make mistakes. We aren't perfect. My wife said she had stopped all text and phone conversation with her boss and is only seeing him at work on a professional level when she has to with other colleagues, so maybe twice a week for 10 to 15 minutes. My wife said she is still confused with her feelings and has felt overwhelmed the last 7 weeks. I told her that's because she has been emotionally connecting with her boss outside the marriage and then coming home and seeing her husband make huge improvements but not giving him any credit for it. I told her I can imagine how mentally draining that is. My wife explained to me that she was happy with our life before she had this affair but wondered if she was truly happy. She told me for once she put herself first and that's part of the reason she did this. I told her that she has always put others before herself since I've known her, and that she does this because that's what makes her happy. I said as soon as you put yourself first in front of everything else, look what has happened. You've lost all your core beliefs and morals and had an affair with someone. I told her that she is doing exactly what her mother did to her father 4 years earlier. During that time, she told me she couldn't believe what her mother did and that she never wants to be her mum, and here we are. A few days later my wife came around before I got home and took our daughter out for dinner. I got home and I noticed her rings were not in the drawer where they had been sitting for a few days and I thought she must have them on. She got home a bit later and I noticed her rings were on. When she wasn't around my daughter I told her it was nice she has her rings back on and she looked at me and smiled and said you don't have yours on. I took this as a good sign that the few days away was affecting her and she was starting to realize what she had done. I went out to play some squash and came back a few hours later. I hugged her and then looked her in the eyes and said I love you. Before I could say anything else she said I love you, too. For the first time I felt it was genuine. Whenever I said this in the past she wouldn't reply or she would say you know I care for you. This signified a positive step forward. We sat down and I just listened to her. She told me she looked at a few places to stay for a bit longer to clear her head but was upset at how crap they were and that home was comfortable. My wife indicated she needed space for 3 to 4 weeks to evaluate everything that she has done without having everyone in her ear. My wife has always been a person that likes her own space to think and I could clearly see she was getting bombarded by our close family, myself and her friends. My wife said she needed time to see why her feelings for her boss were strong and if it was infatuation or was it something more. I agreed that time apart would be good. Even though I still love her so much, I wanted her to have a clear mind before we move forward with the marriage. I want her to realize that the grass isn't always greener on the other side and that what she had at home, a family, means more to her than an emotional affair with her boss. Although we had some times at the beginning of the year that were difficult in our marriage, I have grown as a man and understand the role I played and learned how much communication is key to everything, especially talking on a deeper level. I also understand that being present in the moment and grateful for what you have is hugely important. Becoming complacent in your marriage or life is a killer, and I realized that I never want to do that again. The next day my wife organized an apartment to stay in for 4 weeks. We both agreed we would talk to each other throughout and our daughter would stay with her on a few occasions. My wife would come over a few nights a week for dinner and we would take our daughter out for family time together as well. I wanted to keep normality with my daughter as much as I can, and she did too. Although I am devastated that my wife will be away for 4 weeks and I don't know what the future is going to hold, I know it's a process that must take its course, as we were constantly talking about it at home and it was becoming overwhelming for both of us. I don't think we could have worked through this in a home environment without her evaluating the situation alone. It feels so weird that I'm fighting for my wife after what she has put me through the last 7 to 8 weeks, but I cling to hope that the week or so during that time we were connecting a lot. When the boss wasn't messaging her, I could see my old wife was back and everything felt normal. I guess I came to this sub to see if anyone had similar situations to me and what I can do to try and make it work. At the end of the day, she will make the final decision whether she believes the marriage for 9 years and what we built is worth another crack. I just feel ashamed that I don't feel more angry for what she has done, but I feel like I've grown so much to realize that it wasn't who she is. Is there anything that I can do to help repair this situation, or do I need to let it take its course? This is a really bad idea. Moving out for 4 weeks to work out her feelings means that she will be free to have sex with him again. It is a very common development in this situation. Agree? Who is she trying to kid? In an apartment where she can have exclusive privacy with her boss. Op still says that the wife said that she isn't believing everything a cheater says. The wife might be onto something saying her husband isn't emotionally intelligent. Dude, the woman even told you she doesn't love you. What exactly are you waiting for? Op, you better believe this is exactly right. She wants space so it's easier to sleep with her AP. You are the backup plan. He will either bail on her and she will come crawling back, or she will be dumping you in the next 4 weeks so she can continue on. I assume the only reason she hasn't left you is because her boss is married and won't leave. Right now you are a lobster in a pot and can't see that she already burned your marriage to the ground. It's overall an awfully sad situation for Op. If only he could wake up. It's like he is in a stupor. Right, and just having the daughter visit occasionally is another massive red flag. I've never met a woman who would leave their child behind to clear her head. Most just aren't wired that way, and probably more evidence that this is about her giving her new relationship a trial run before exiting the marriage for good. What about the time she was sleeping on a friend's couch for 4 days after D-Day? She looked pale and exhausted from sleeping on the friend's couch, so Op let her sleep on the bed. Reads like fan fiction. Yay, he's a clown. This isn't a surprising outcome. Dude literally absconded sex with his wife for video games for half a year or whatever. What do you think would happen? The second she finds a new good dick, then it's game over. I really agree with this frown. Man, for a woman to tell you to your face she doesn't love you after all those years, she means that shit, lol. Once a woman is done, she is really done. Op is really trying to save this marriage for the kid and doesn't realize how he ought to damage himself doing that. Oh, the wife and her boss have been knocking boots for a long time, and now that she's got an apartment for 4 weeks it will be easier. Hubby will be too busy with the child to check up on her. She emphatically denies she has had sex with him. I don't know what to believe anymore, but I felt when she said she hadn't, it was very genuine. I've picked up most things before when she was lying which turned out to be true, so I feel like I would know and get the gut feeling if she was. She said she felt completely humiliated in herself that she can tell someone she loves them without being physical. I feel like from what I know she hasn't had sex with him. But who knows? I think if he catches both butt naked in bed with the bossy about half an inch after entering his wife, he would still believe it was an emotional affair. Well, it was just the tip. Okay, ha 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 ha, why dude, that's awful. Good job. Seriously, adults who are attracted to each other don't just hang out and chill after work. They have sex. She's probably doing things in bed with him that she would never dream of doing for her husband. They are having, or have at the very least had, sex. There is absolutely no reason for his wife to move out for weeks. She is obviously having sex with her boss. Op should really try to get both fired. I would love to see how well her boss will do with the ladies in his life when his status is taken away from him. Yeah, I agree, I would blow up their careers and never speak to the wife again in any capacity other than to arrange care for the kid. Oh my god. Dude. You can't seriously believe your wife spends 4 weeks in an apartment and she is not sleeping with her boss. She is fooling you big time. Hire a pie today and tomorrow you have your proof. I read a ton of these types of posts, here and at survivinginfidelity.com. I would say that based on the patterns that these things tend to follow, they don't call it a cheater's handbook for nothing. Things have progressed physically. Most of the times she went for a run was code for sex. And now she has moved out, almost certainly to test drive the other relationship without you in the way. I don't say this to be a jerk or to tell you to man up, I say it to get to realize what is most likely happening. Would that change things for you? I would try to wrap your head around that fact. Realize that you have control. I know you love her, and love your family life. But right now she is cheating. What possible reason could she have for moving out for any other reason? She could sleep in a separate bedroom if she wanted some separation. She will deny having sex with him and even swear on the life of your daughter. That's what cheaters do. Anything to keep the lie intact. I think if you look at your situation from this point of view, it will help you gain clarity. Again, you have control. You can see an attorney or solicitor and get information as to what divorce will look like. I would even go so far as to have her served. Nothing wakes waywards out of their fog like getting served with consequences for their behavior. Divorce can take a while, so there is time to salvage something if she comes clean and begins the hard work of repairing the marriage. I'm sorry you have to go through this. It's a big crap sandwich. Take care of your daughter the best you can. Dude, please stop. I mean, it's technically possible but highly implausible that they haven't been having regular sex from what you've told us. For starters, you should inform the boss's wife if you want to shake things up a bit. Stop being a sucker and she may respect you more. Dude, my ex-wife did the exact same thing. Except it wasn't at work, it was at the gym. And she would say the same things. Not sure if she loves me, she's not having an affair, she needs more me time, etc etc etc. I did everything you did and more. But to no avail. I saw the FBMSGS. I will never unsee them, although I'm over it now. Reading these posts does bring back memories, no doubt. She basically just got permission to have a bachelor bed and have the boss over when he can come by and they can fall more head over heels for each other. You made a big mistake allowing this to happen. She has a daughter and she would rather choose to be at an apartment with her boss, than raise her child. Says a lot about her. She will come crying back when the boss has had enough. I'd be reporting this affair to human resources and shutting it down immediately. I'd also pay the boss man a personal visit. Find out what car he drives and head over to see it in her apartment parking lot. You'll find it there sooner or later. Oh, no doubt he'll be over there, but it's always going to be for a very very important project. How dare you think any different when I've been working my ass off for you and our family, etc, etc. Get that VAR in there fast. Either near the front door or the bedroom, both would be nice. If hubby is even allowed to come over. Dude, the reason your wife is out getting an apartment is to indulge in sex with her boss. Open your eyes. She is walking all over you and has no respect for you. This weak and pathetic pick-me dance you are doing never works. I know it sounds weird, but if you want any chance of saving your marriage, you need to file for divorce and let her know you are not some backup plan. I feel for you, dude, but reading that was pathetically painful. She is in what a lot of people call the fog. You need to snap her out of it, otherwise she will just keep ducking her boss and keeping you on leash. You need a growing spine right now if you want any chance of saving this marriage. Adults have unprotected sex. They don't just talk, hold hands, hug and kiss. Cheaters lie. Cheaters minimize, deflect and lie about anything to keep the fantasy life and the home alive. I am sorry to say you are a backup plan to her, nothing more. Here, if she told you she did / was ducking him, what would you say and do? She lied to you. She told you what you could handle. She's not going to ever admit she did him unless you had proof she did. Never trust her again until she proves herself. Right now she is lying and still cheating. Stop believing her until she proves this wrong. I've posted elsewhere about what I think is happening. Let me offer some clear advice on what you can do to prevent her from utterly destroying you in the coming weeks. First, I am a lawyer, but not your lawyer, and promise you the first step here is to get one of your own. Laws vary from place to place and you need to find out what the road ahead has in store for you. Let me also make clear, your wife already has her own or will in the coming weeks. In most places, her current actions will benefit you greatly if you have the courage to take advantage of her massive mistake. She has abandoned your marital home, her spouse, and her child. Act now on these horrific acts by your WS and you can walk away with custody of your child and keep your home. Continue with the denial and she will return when her lawyer explains how bad she just ducked up legally. She will then get primary custody in the house. You will be broke and only see your child occasionally. She may even turn your own child against you, so whatever guy slides in to be the new daddy doesn't have competition. Plus, how will you feel in a month when she tells you it's over? She is a cruel human and may share how much better her AP is to further hurt you and drive you away. She will need you out of the picture to hide what a cruel asshole she is. Please listen to the folks on here, it's solid information. It is way worse than you are letting yourself believe. Denial is an early stage of grief. It doesn't mean you're wrong, just understand the feeling isn't real, just part of the grieving process. Right now anger is your friend, it's your mind sending you a clear signal. Use it to do what you have to in order to save yourself and your relationship with your child. Go back and read your own words, sir. She's a proven liar that emphatically denies something. She was emphatically denying what you saw with your own eyes at the black tie event, my man. Snap out of it and verify. Would it be so terrible to hire a pie to keep an eye on her late night activities? That's why she needs her love nest away from home for 4 weeks. To see if they are good together. Stop being her plan B per second place. Read your words again, she went straight to the showers. And let me guess, her underwear went straight into the wash, not the communal handper? She has been screwing her boss while screwing you over. Buddy, I'm sorry. I know you really love this woman, so much so that you just can't accept what is tight in front of you. They are having sex like drunken monkeys. She lied and is still lying to you. Please, brother, do what you will as far as staying or going. But don't surrender your reality because it is too painful to face. It is a long way back from there, and most never make it. Dude, she is probably ducking him as you read this. You are too naive. The year is 2020, she had sex with him many times, that's why she behaved the way she did. You also thought she wouldn't cheat on you before she did, look where you are. Why would her boss talk to her if she isn't giving him something? She knows. Ha ha ha, oh boy. She is such a pro. Good job, Op. Your wife now has her own apartment to duck her boss in. No need for her to be secretive when you're not around. And I'll say this, well actually, when you divorce her, let HR at her company know. She and her boss need to rightfully be fired. You let her have a 4-week getaway with her boss. Good job, my friend. You catch your wife cheating, and you let her still gaslight you with the rings. She is preparing for divorce, her way. She is more afraid of losing her job than losing you. How can you believe anything coming out of her mouth, man? Wake up. The fact is, she is saying I love you to another man, not you. She is probably with him right now. You should have gone to a lawyer, take legal advice, or hire a PI to open your eyes. If she wanted to work it with you, she should have stayed to prove that she loved you, cut any contact, transfer, hell, quit her job if it came to it, open her social media, phone to you and everything. You really think she is going to stay alone for 4 weeks? Check again. She is having a very naive and stupid husband. He likes getting played and taking on the role of bigger man. So I really don't care much. According to the comment section, Op believes her, that there was nothing physical. He is going to get blindsided. He already was and doesn't even know it. You think he knows more about his spouse than a bunch of guys who don't know anything? What do you mean? Op himself, in the comment section towards other guys, said he believes her. And in general, yes. This guy is a ship in the fog, everyone else is the observer from the lighthouse watchtower. This dude is going to get destroyed when she inevitably divorces him and takes his kid. He's so weak. Mate, don't let the harsh comments here discourage you. Some are hard realities, but do not doubt who you are or what you do. You look like a good man that cares, and that's never bad. Certainly it shouldn't be grounds for a cheater to prey on. Get ready for the inevitable, and lawyer up. You need to realize that the chances she'll come back at the moment are below slim. She is infatuated with her boss and you are just her old boring husband in her eyes. If she doesn't see that, there is very little you can do. Get legal advice, set boundaries with her and start the process. Good luck, my friend, you'll be alright in the end whatever happens. People are hard because they are getting angry with his naivety. But most of us do actually care for him more than his own wife does. We are all just hoping that he stops lying to himself and dares to look reality in the eyes. Of course, and sometimes you need the hard truth bare in front of you. I get that, I need that too, just look at my post history. My point is, he comes across as a good dude. Do not let the awfulness of this person change who you are. You'll find someone that appreciates you for what you are, and does not take advantage of it in the most humiliating way. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.